What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. It's Ryan Anderson. It's Jackson Muniz. We're here on behalf of our friends at HPI Bet up at Woodbine. We're going over this week's Oaks Derby preview. Jackson, this week we got a doubleheader. Happens to be back-to-back races as well. It's up at Colonial, who has their Virginia Oaks, Virginia Derby, special racing weekend going on here. Obviously, you and I are going to be out at the NHC this weekend trying to qualify tomorrow and hopefully win the whole thing by Sunday evening. But Jackson, we got to dive into these two races as Oaks and Derby points both on the line.
Yeah, fun little meet. I think it's just the 3 days. Does that sound right to you, Ryan? Yeah, I think last year was the first time they had it, and I couldn't even tell you who won the Derby. I know the horse won by the length of the stretch. I think it was it a Dwayne Lucas horse maybe that
yes,
won?
It was. I forget the name though.
Yeah, I can't remember who won. But I do know the horse was like 10-1, and the room we were in Vegas, obviously, and the room went nuts because it was a prize horse and it was a big race and it was pretty cool. So I think this year's field came up even stronger than last year. I know it's not maybe the star power that we're hoping to see, but it's definitely a wide open betting race. So excited to talk about that one and the Oaks as well.
Yeah, excited to get into that. And you brought up some really good points in that. I really do think that there's some good runners in here. Don't know that we're going to see a whole lot of them, maybe contend high in the Derby, but I think there's some promising horses that could go, whether it's the Pat Day Mile, because keep in mind, this is a one-turn kind of 9 furlong race. Mm-hmm. And whether they contend later on this season, the Preakness or the Belmont or even beyond that, who knows? So I do think it's a competitive field, so I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, and I think what's most interesting about this field, and we're going to go deeper dive into these horses, but it feels like there's a lot of horses that are ultimately don't want to run super far. Like they're going to be best going to one turn, which they're getting the one turn on Saturday, but they're also still running 9 furlong. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out for sure.
It is going to be interesting because, keep in mind, they do go the one turn distance going this way as well. So it might play even a little bit different than it would going 2 turns, going the 9. But let's not waste any more time. Let's get into the Virginia Oaks first. We're going to start from the rail, work our way out. Number 1, Dazzling Dame coming in for Brittany Russell. Jovian Toledo aboard after a dominating win in the Busanda Stakes at a little over 2-1. Beat 2 Bits, who came right back out to win. Jackson, this is obviously a very strong contender in a field and a filly that looks to keep getting better. She's 2 for 2 in her last 2 stakes.
Yeah, and she's gotten better in her every start up to this point, at least in her last 3. I mean, that race at Aqueduct she crushed that field, and it seemed like it was a decent group. I know 2 Bits came back and won. I don't know how much stock I want to put in that performance because she did come back to win while riding the gold rail during that week or two at Aqueduct. So not sure if I necessarily believe the number, but the fact that she ran an 82 buyer in October as a 2-year-old and came right back and ran a 90, you got to believe that's one you want to buy some stock in against this field because there's not really anyone else that's capable of running a race like that up to this point. She's got tactical speed. I don't see any reason why more distance won't be her friend based on how she's run up to this point. I think she's the horse to beat.
Yeah, I think she is the horse to beat, clearly off that last effort that, she really just kind of widened and got going. And you brought up a good point. 2 Bits ran back during a pretty strong rail bias at Aqueduct. But, she beat that field the right way. And she's clearly going well. She's 4 for 5 to start her career. Her only loss was in the Grade 3 Pocahontas, which always comes up a really salty field, is taken by the Wind, who was your second choice just a couple weeks ago in the Honeybee when we previewed that one. Post position 2 is taken by Hit Parade, this daughter of Street Sense. Brad Cox trains this runner. Thought by the name maybe some relation to Hit Show, but no. But another one trained by Brad Cox, ridden by Irad Ortiz in here. Jackson, what do you make of the chances of this one?
I mean, she's another one that's obviously a contender based on those races 2 and 3 back. I mean, those were strong performances. Those came while she was a 2-year-old. Running those low 80 buyers. And, she beat a couple decent horses and Love Your Neighbor. And was it Pashmina? That was a decent group in the Untappable that she beat that day. The problem is she came back in the Martha Washington and was just a really poor effort. I mean, she didn't really run that well. She was kind of done by the time they hit the top of the stretch. And, I wonder if this cutback is going to be good for her. I feel like it might be. Not really cut back, but the cut back to a 1-turn race rather than the 2 turns. She is stretching out, which is a question mark. I think you want to be very price sensitive about this horse. I think if you have her and the 1 at a similar price, you're supposed to take Dazzling Dame. But if she does drift up, I think you're supposed to take Hit Parade to rebound. The issue is with these connections, I don't know how much she's actually going to drift up. If anything, I think it's possible that she and Dazzling Dame maybe even switch in the odds.
Yeah, they very well could, because I think they're both going to take some money. And I don't know how you look at it, but the horses that leave Oaklawn, I always like to follow that form, just because the Oaklawn meet, with their purse structure and the size of their fields, those races often come up a lot tougher than what the level and the condition that they're running at is. And obviously, she ran in a 3-year-old only listed stake last time, but you can make the argument that, Search Party has gone on. No, I guess not to do a whole lot. Newtown Pike, we were looking forward to running back, I think last week before. But either way, sometimes those horses leave Oaklawn, and that's a really demanding surface. So sometimes they can, bounce off of that. Sometimes it's almost like they're facing a little bit easier because of how those fields draw. But right to the outside, Bottle of Rouge, who is certainly going to get a bit of a class test here, trained by Bob Baffert, just came off a win in the Sunland Park Oaks. But in front of Touch of Magic. What did you make of this runner, as she's the 6-5 morning line favorite, ridden by Flavian Pratt, trained by Bob Baffert and owned by Bob Baffert's wife, Natalie Baffert? What were your thoughts here?
Well, it's difficult to know how she classes up against these based on her most recent race at Sunland Park, when she was odds on. She beat a field that was just okay. She did it with some controversy. We don't know, whether you believe she should have been DQ'd or not. She was veering out in the stretch, and that can sometimes be a sign of a horse that's getting tired and doesn't want to go much further. That would also maybe back up what we saw from her in the Breeders' Cup, when she didn't run that well either in her 2-turn race. So I know she's getting back to 1-turn today. I just don't know if 9 furlongs is going to necessarily be her game. And it's not like this field came up soft. I mean, Dazzling Dame is a nice horse, as is Hit Parade on her best day. So she's going to have to prove that she's up to this kind of task going this distance today. And she's probably going to be favored. I mean, she's 6-5 in the morning line. Baffert horses get bet like crazy on the Oaks Trail as well.
They do. We're watching the replays. They turned into the stretch, and you can kind of see that swerve out, Jackson, that you alluded to. Definitely pretty major. Seemed like she was just maybe a little bit green in the comeback race. Maybe just kind of getting her legs underneath her. I don't know. It feels like when she switched leads, she kind of leveled off nicely, but a little bit of a goofy move there as she was, trying to straighten out for the drive under Juan Hernandez that day. I'm with you. I think she's just going to take a little too much money for my liking, so I'm probably going to go in another direction. The number 4, Cadabra. Todd Pletcher trains this filly by Good Magic. John Velasquez in town. Comes off a run in the Suncoast from finishing 3rd behind your likely Oaks favorite in Zany, who Jackson is just a sensational 3-year-old, as she's done very little wrong so far, and she still seems to be figuring things out in her own way. But we get Cadabra in here, who set the pace in that race last time in the Suncoast.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call Zany sensational yet, but she probably is amongst the favorites in the Oaks, and she did face a good rival that day. She's interesting because she's kind of the other speed in this race. I mean, Hit Parade's probably not going to go. She'll be close, but she won't go. I don't think Bottle Rouge will be on the lead in here. She's never been on the lead in her career up to this point. So it seems like it's going to be Dazzling Dame and Cadabra on the front end. And I'm curious to see how aggressive Johnny B is from the outside. Is he going to try to make the lead at all costs, or is he going to do that typical Johnny B ride where he's going to stalk 2 or 3 wide on the outside and, try to slow this thing down a little bit and maybe outkick him for home? That might be her best chance in here, because I don't know how good she is. So maybe she really needs things that just back down significantly to have her best chance. But, she is going to be a pace presence in this race for sure.
Yeah, she certainly is. So that's something to keep an eye on as they go, because Johnny could absolutely get Cadabra out on the front end. And he's a Hall of Famer for a reason. He's tough to catch when he gets out to that lead. Number 5 is Somebody to Love, a deserving long shot in here. Just broke the maiden last time in a state bred race at Parks. Any chances here that you gave this one? Also got Lasix for the first win of the career last time.
Yeah, it seems like she's probably best suited for underneath. She would need a big pace collapse with probably 4 horses across the track for her to make some noise in this race.
I agree. And last one we'll talk about is Baffle, who is still a maiden for Todd Pletcher. He tried this last week in the Tampa Bay Derby, where that horse of his that I am forgetting the name of somehow did not win. However, the other maiden did in the Puma. So the Puma got 50 Kentucky Derby points in the maiden breaking performance. But Baffle in here, Rapoli, Todd Pletcher, and Mirage team up for this one. Any chance that you give this runner?
Yeah, Power Shift was the name of the maiden horse for Pletcher last week. I think that was also Rapoli trainee, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, she just seems too slow as well. I know last time you can forgive that race because she was way wide against the bias at Aqueduct, but even the races before that, she was getting decent setups that race 2 and 3 back. Only was able to run a 56 buyer. That's just way too slow to compete with these.
It is way too slow. I'm with you on that. All right, Jackson, that is the Virginia Oaks. That's a field of 6 competing here. Our top picks are up on the screen. And actually, let me turn the ticker off and just put them up as a banner. Let me see here. Maybe. All right. There we go. We're both going with the number 1 Dazzling Dame. No surprise there. Jackson, I just feel like the price is right. And off that last win, feels like she's definitely the horse to bet in here, knowing that Bottle of Rouge is likely going to be your favorite.
I agree. I think she's the controlling speed in here. She's run the fastest races. And of the big 3 in this race, I'm most confident in her ability to get the 9 furlongs. So if she's not going to be favored in here, this kind of seems like a no-brainer pick. I'm gonna bet Dazzling Dame.
I'm absolutely with you on that. Yeah, nothing really to add. Feels like this is the filly that's going right and it just keeps getting better, and we maybe haven't seen the best from her. So excited to see Dazzling Dame. That's going to be my bet. Certainly, if she's not the favorite, feels like Jackson said, like a no-brainer to have this be the horse to bet. All right, that wraps up the Virginia Oaks. We're going to go right on into the Virginia Derby now, which, Jackson, is the next race. It's race number 9 on a 10-race program at Colonial this Saturday. We'll put the post positions and past performances back up on the screen here. We're going to start from the rail and another Bob Baffert, Flavien Prat combo in butane. Last ran 3rd in the Southwest, so has some Kentucky Derby points on the road to the first Saturday in May, but needs to get that win here as he looks to step up versus this group. Drew the rail. What are your thoughts here?
Well, here's another Baffert horse that's probably going to be favored. And he has question marks about the distance. I mean, the San Vicente race, he was getting tired late going just to 7. And he was getting, so happy he was getting away from him. We don't even know how far So Happy wants to run based on how he came back and ran in San Felipe. So that worries me a little bit. Obviously, he came back in the Southwest and ran fine. I mean, Silent Tactic did come back to validate that form. But another race where he seemed like he ran okay, but didn't really get the distance going the 8.5. Now he has to go 9 furlongs. Now he's got the rail in a race with a lot of other speed. I feel like this is a horse you're supposed to try and beat in here. Are you going to be surprised if he wins? Probably not, because I think you can make a case he is the fastest horse in the race, but he does have questions to answer, and it seems like he's going to be overbet for these connections.
Yeah, he is likely going to be overbet with a lot of things to prove. So I'm with you. I got to play against this horse, but he did run well to still kind of stay on in a race that I don't know if fall apart would be the word, but I mean, Silent Tactic did come from well off the pace, and that's obviously his run style. Soldier and Diplomat came from maybe a little bit off of it, but Butane hung around to get a good 3rd in there. So maybe one that could take a little bit of a step up, but definitely regressed off that San Vicente performance. Number 2, Grittiness, Todd Pletcher, Rapoli Stables, Mirage. They team up one more time. This time, this horse, Jackson, has a little bit more of a chance than the horse we just talked about in Baffle in the Virginia Oaks. What are your thoughts on Grittiness? Lost by about 11 lengths to Talk to Me Jimmy, who I believe ran a very strong race given a very strong bias at Aqueduct that day.
Yeah, I wish Grittiness had run better in the Weathers. I know he was 2nd that day, but he was well beaten. He also rode the rail for 6 or 7 furlongs of that 9 furlong race. Well, it wasn't like he was against the track that day, and he just didn't run that fast in there. I will say it seems like this race has the potential to really heat up on the front end. And with his running style, he's just going to be 15 lengths out the back and come with his one run if this thing really falls apart. Like, I don't think 12-1 is a bad price in him. Even his race 2 back in the Remsen, I thought he actually ran okay in that spot. Obviously, you see likes of Paladin, you see Renegade on the page. Those are some good horses he faced. He had a really difficult trip that day. I think there are reasons to like him. I didn't ultimately pick him on top, but he's not the worst long shot I've ever seen.
No, he's not. He certainly has a good shot if things do heat up on the front end. Next one to talk about is the number 3, Epic Desire. Todd Pletcher, a name we've said already about 6 times on this program because he's got a lot of entrance in these 2 races. But Epic Desire with Sheldon Russell in here. Comes off a 5th place finish in the Sam F. Davis that was won by Renegade. Some other runners in there, including the Puma, who finished in 3rd. And obviously, you see the italicized lettering. He just won the Tampa Bay Derby last weekend. Jackson, what are your thoughts on this one as Epic Desire is going to try and stretch out another half furlong here?
Well, he's another one that is going to be coming from off the pace. And again, the horses that are going to be on the lead all seem to be amongst the favorites. So you have horses like Butane. You have horses like the 5 we're going to get to High Camp, Lock, Stock, and Pharaoh, all the horses and Confessional, the 4 main favorites all seem like the 4 main speeds. So if they get in each other's way, again, this is a race could potentially see it set up for a horse like Epic Desire, who's going to drop out and make one run. The other thing he has going in his favor is he's done nothing but improve in every single start of his career. He's gotten better and better and better and better. If he takes yet another similar step forward, I'm not going to be shocked if he makes some noise in this race. He's another one I didn't ultimately pick, but I can see the case for him.
Yeah, it's a competitive race. It's kind of Jackson dying for a horse to kind of step up and make that move to kind of, cement themselves as a Derby contender in here. So in an unbiased way, I think the number 4, Work, certainly no personal connection to Doug O'Neill. I'm not like I work for him or anything, but I think like Work could, really step up. And our buddy Shane O'Neill's in the chat. He thinks the same. He said Work wins by 10.5 lengths, over or under.
I'm gonna leave the Work conversation to you guys. You guys can talk about that horse. You go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, look, the maiden breaking performance on turf last time, it was just nice to see him continue to progress and get that skill. Obviously, he's a deserved long shot in here. He is a New York bred, so maybe they're going to try and keep him out east and try some New York breds after this. But hey, you got to take a shot with your 3-year-olds. You don't know till you know. And I mean, no, I don't think he's got a huge chance. You looked at those first 2 races on dirt, and they aren't super enthusiastic, but he has gotten better in each of those races. And given, the last 3 have been on grass. So I doubt it. Deserved long shot for sure, but crazier things in this game have happened. Of course, Mixto won the Pacific Classic, and I'm still beside myself.
I think this horse would be a bigger surprise than Mixto was.
I think so too. The number 5 High Camp would be no surprise. Will Walden and Johnny Velasquez team up. They're 9-2 on the morning line. Comes off a strong maiden breaking performance. Ran well on debut behind Waymark as well. What do you make of this horse's chances, Jackson?
Well, first of all, I wonder if he's actually going to be 9-2. From what I've kind of been reading and gathering this week, it seems like there's a lot of buzz around this horse, and he's kind of becoming the wise guy in this race. So I think if you can get 9-2, he's the play. I'm just skeptical you actually will. I think he'll be second choice come post time, in which case I probably wouldn't want him. Because his first 2 races were pretty good. I mean, the debut was fine. He went 6 furlongs, probably a little too short for him, and he ran into Waymark, who's a nice horse. Then he came back at Gulfstream again, and he had a kind of a weird trip in that he was close, and then on the turn he dropped out and seemed like he was kind of done. And then by the time they hit the stretch, he kind of re-rallied and ended up winning that race pretty easily. So to me, that tells me he's going to get better with more distance, because he really was doing his best running late in that race. So the more distance won't be a problem for him. The one turn obviously isn't a question mark. He does have to come off Lasix, but he did run well on debut without Lasix, so that's probably okay as well. And he's got tactical speed to be fourthly placed, but he proved last time he doesn't need the lead. So I think there's plenty to like about this horse. It's just a matter of how short of a price are you willing to take on him in this wide open of a race.
Yeah, it's a very, very wide open race. So you do have to, be a little bit price. I don't know about price dependent, but definitely you don't want to take too short of a price in a race that's very deep and very competitive. Sorry, I lost my train of thought for just half a second. The number 6, Lock, Stock, and Pharaoh. Thomas Drury trains this runner, who is 2 for 2 at Turfway Park by very dominant margins. This horse, Jackson, seems to be continuing to improve and get better. 5-1 on the morning line here, but going to be trying something new for the first time, and that's going to be the dirt surface. So what do you make of that? And is 5-1 too short to take a shot?
It's obviously a huge question, because he hasn't even trained on it recently either. So it's just a complete unknown how he's going to handle this surface. He was very impressive, though, in his most recent race at Turfway Park. I know he got kind of an easy lead that day, and maybe that field wasn't the greatest when you see a 50-1 shot hanging on for second. But he did it the right way. I mean, the number came back fast. He crushed a field that wasn't that good, which is all you can ask. It's just how short a price do you want to take on him? I think 5-1 might be a little too low, because he does have questions to answer. He also has to come off Lasix for, his best race by far came with Lasix. So it is a question mark to some degree. I think I'd probably be fading him in this spot, but he's another one where I'm just not going to be surprised if he wins.
I agree. Not going to be surprised if he wins, but probably not going to be have any of my money backing this horse.
Oh,
Horse that I think is a little bit interesting, Jackson, is the number 7 Incredible, who is getting better to end the 2-year-old season with a win in the Street Sense Stakes, which was the race, of course, the Kentucky Derby winner won last year in Sovereignty. Came back in the Holy Bull and was bet down to 3-1 and really just didn't fire that day. But when you look to the career debut and you look at the trainer, Riley Mott, who is obviously the son of Bill Mott, neither of them really train their runners to be ready first up, and they can take a big step forward in that second start off the layoff. And you see the exact same was true for Incredible in the second career start. Improved the Beyer nearly 20 points, got the maiden broken by open lengths, and really showed a lot of growth and progression. Do you think that's kind of what you're going to see here with this runner? Do you think maybe it just didn't quite go on as a 3-year-old?
I mean, he can't run any worse than he did last time. You can make the case, sure, that it's Mott and he wasn't cranked out, but he lost by 25 lengths. It wasn't like he came and made a little move and got tired late. He was dreadful. So maybe he needed the race. Maybe he hated the track. I don't know what happened that day. I do know his races before that were pretty good, though. You know, the race, the maiden break at Churchill, going the one turn, won that race really decisively with a strong number, beat Carson Street, who's a solid horse that's kind of on the Derby trail amongst his caliber that he's going to face today, I would say. And he came back in the Street Sense, and you know, he won that race pretty nicely as well. I know that maybe wasn't the strongest field, but again, comparing that field to the field he's facing today, I think they're pretty similar in ability. I don't think it's, again, this race isn't full of superstars, so I think those races 2 and 3 back do fit. And you know his style is going to be to drop out and make one run, which we keep talking about might suit this race really nicely. So I am going to pick him in here. I think 10-1 is a good price, hoping that he bounces back from that abysmal effort at Gulfstream. And it's good to see that, you know, there wasn't any break in the works. He's coming back in, 6 weeks now. So like, it wasn't like there was a huge issue and needed some time. Like, no, he's been working steadily since then. Clearly they still think enough of him to try this spot. So I think 10-1 is a good gamble on him in this race.
I think so as well. I have no issue with this horse if you want to take the shot. And if there's one thing you know for sure, it's that he likes Churchill down. So if he can get there, maybe he can surprise the world, because his 2 best performances by far have come over that racetrack. Number 8, Confessional, is the next one up today. Gets blinkers back on, had him for the first 2 career starts, lost the blinkers in the 2-turn debut, going the 8.5 furlongs in the Sam F. Davis last time out. Jackson, that was obviously a disappointing effort. The blinkers maybe made some sort of a difference there. So blinkers back on for Brad Cox. Irad Ortiz, who obviously is kind of the top rider for the Brad Cox barn. What'd you make of this runner?
Yeah, he's another one that's going to take a lot of money in here, and he's probably going to be over bet for these connections. But again, the race 2 back to nearly doesn't look as bad now as he was beating odds on, but nearly came back and won. Oh, God, what's that race called? Not the Fountain of Youth. Help me out, Ryan.
The Holy Bull.
The Holy Bull. He crushed in the Holy Bull. He won with a huge number. He's amongst the Derby favorites, so that race doesn't look as bad as it did a couple weeks ago. And I don't know what happened in the Sam F. Davis. He was terrible. But again, if you're hoping for a bounce back spot, the blinkers do go back on. He makes some sense in here. He drew outside of all the other speeds, so I'm not going to be shocked if he runs well in here.
Yeah, I'm not going to be surprised either. He could certainly bounce back, but I feel like he's just going to be too low of a price for me to take. We'll get to the number 9, Ocelli, I believe it's pronounced, who, spoiler alert, is going to be my top pick in here. Obviously, a bit of a disappointing effort and maybe made a little bit of a middle move in there. So you sometimes like to see that, but hasn't taken the massive step forward that I want. But Jackson, we've talked the entire show about the Virginia Derby here and how a lot of these horses are going to kind of drop out and make the one run. This is another one that's going to fit that bill. And this is one that I think for Whitworth Beckham can definitely take a step up. And I'm going to get 15-1 or somewhere around that on this horse. So this is the one I want where, you know, you look at those efforts 2 and 3 back. It can sometimes, first of all, be tough to close over the Tampa track. This is going one turn, and the fairgrounds has a really long stretch, which kind of helps those closers. You can see 2 and 3 back, close behind Thunderbuck, which obviously Jackson is a horse that you love dearly, and Reagan's Honor, who's really exploded onto the scene as of late for Cherie DeVoe, but closed into some slow paces that were won by horses up kind of towards the front. So I think if Ocelli can get a little bit more pace, this is the one where we haven't really seen him at his best. He is a maiden in here, but that's not going to deter me too much because we just saw a maiden break their get their maiden broken in a Derby prep last week. So I went with the number 9 Ocelli on top.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. I've been waiting for this horse to cut back to one turn. I just don't think he wants to go the 9 furlongs. I think it's based on how he's run up to this point. At least as of right now, it's probably too far for him. I think if this race was 7, he'd be my top pick in here. But because there are some things to like about the way he's run in each of his last couple races, just don't think he's going to see out the distance at the end of the day.
I don't believe he will be too compromised by it. I think the one turn's kind of going to fit him best. I'm with you there. As far as a Derby contender, I don't think so. I think he's probably not exactly bred for it. But hey, $12,000 purchase, crazier things have happened. So, but he's one in here going the 9 furlongs through the one turn. I do think has a chance. Last one we'll talk about before getting to our top picks, Jackson. The number 10 Clocker Special for Rudy Brisset and Christian Torres in from Oaklawn. Rode this one to a second place finish behind Honey's to Blame, who came back in the Rebel. What do you make of this one? Second start of the form cycle to begin the 3-year-old season.
I feel like he's up against it. I know he ran well in that last race. He was kind of against the pace that day, against the race flow, I should say. But the form of that race just has not held up at all. I mean, you look at the run backs, they've all kind of regressed pretty significantly. I think everyone's come back to regress by at least 10 points in there. So I don't know how good that race was. It seems like he's got to have to improve quite a bit to make some noise in this race.
Yeah, he is. He is going to be a horse that's going to be forward and should get a relatively clean trip, all things considered, with the outside draw and speed in a race that maybe doesn't have a ton of early pace. All right, Jackson, that is the Virginia Derby. Let's get into our picks before we wrap things up here. Oh, I forgot to take it off as a banner again. That's a host fail, but no worries. We fixed it. I'm going with the number 9 Ocelli. You are going with the number 7 Incredible. We're going with a couple of prices, Jackson. My approach to it was this race is kind of dying for someone to kind of step up. So why not a maiden in back-to-back weeks for these Derby preps? What were your thoughts landing on the number 7 Incredible?
It just feels like this race is kind of ripe for an upset, in that a lot of these favorites have the same running style. They're not exactly standouts in this race either. So I'm hoping that this pace really heats up. I'm hoping Incredible can rebound off that really poor effort at Gulfstream Park, because his form as a 2-year-old was really good. Those Churchill Downs races, he ran really well in those spots. Those races, I think, make him a fit against this group. And because he ran so poorly last time, you're going to get a good price on him on Saturday. So the fact that there's no scary break in between, he hasn't missed any time in the mornings, I think that kind of tells you they still think pretty highly of this horse. They're hoping he can rebound in here. And at 10-1, I think it's a pretty good price on hoping that he does.
Yeah, I'm hoping Ocelli is able to do a little bit of the same. I mean, last time out, finished in front of Confessional, and Confessional is going to be what, like a fourth of the price that you're going to get on Ocelli. And I think, in my opinion, Ocelli ran the better race in there. Yes, Confessional was up kind of on the front end and didn't have blinkers that day, and maybe that makes a massive difference. But I don't know. I like when a horse is able to make a little bit of a middle move. I get Joe Ramos on board for the first time. He's obviously a very capable rider. Him and Whitworth Beckham obviously team up to have a good bit of success. And I think if this horse really does take a step forward, I think some pace is going to have to materialize. But you have Butane down on the rail, and that's a horse that, Baffert, West Coast speed, it's always going to be a little bit up towards the front end. And then the horse on the far outside that we talked about, Clocker Special, that's another horse with some early speed. So I think there is, the chance that a couple of these horses are going to be forward early, maybe pressing on each other a bit. You have Lock, Stock, and Pharaoh as well. You also have High Camp for Johnny V that's stretching out from the 7 furlongs, then to the mile and 1/8. I would imagine Work is a horse that kind of has to go, stretching out on the dirt for the first time. So going to be interesting to see. But yeah, I'll end on the number 9, Ocelli. Jackson on the number 7, Incredible. Thank you guys for tuning in.